Chilly here with Sirius Talis Moon and Moon Hour Mars Night. The Moon is 26 degrees Aquarius and it is applying to square Uranus. Midheaven ruled by Jupiter, Jupiter 22 in Cancer in the second house, Ascendant 29 degrees Gemini. So, a mixture of astrology reading and energy reading. What I got was you tried to lock me down. They tried to lock me down, but they just locked me into my lot of happiness. And this is, it's going to resonate for a lot of people. Now, here is something. I think the people that are going to resonate with that the most is people that grew up either in Nordic countries or had at least one parent that spent a lot of time or was married to a person from Nordic countries, including Northern Europe. It may be for other people in the world, um, but I'm just not too well acquainted with the cultures. And it is particularly for people who grew up, maybe even some Slavic people would identify with that, the people that grew up with the notion that, the sun doesn't rise from anybody's behind, and how should I say that? If there would be something happening not okay in our lives, we were taught to hone in on or anchor in on kind of like, hey, people are weird, but if you'll be okay, then you won't trigger their weird. Or if you'll be that and that. And a lot of us got a lot of different messages, whether it was somebody tried to strike you so much so that he can't even think of doing that again. Or, and usually as very young children, okay, like I'm Pisces first house, so for me it's like particularly difficult. Um, but this is where the issues begin, is that a lot of people weren't aware of the fact that when there's certain types of struggle that is about other people either envying what they have, and I know it sounds stupid because a lot of people grew, either they have and they grew to downplay that, but from an ethics point of view, not like from them being humble, not from people envying them. Okay, I know, like, I hope that's understood. And or they they weren't really aware of having certain things, and particularly when it comes to connection with their own heart, benevolence, like more things to do with the soul, okay? And that can create a situation where person being targeted or whatnot, something goes off in their life, so they will just take take the one up, take the, let's say a job doesn't work so well. So they will rethink with themselves and say, hey, maybe there's a part of me that's looking to do something bigger, make a bigger contribution. Maybe I was downplaying what I can give to the world and I have to step up to my own mission. And they would just take the next step. They would just do this shadow work and take the next step. They would not think that somebody tried to sabotage, or even if downright they would see somebody was outright trying to sabotage, they would interpret it as, okay, probably this is happening because I haven't stepped up to my true calling. Okay? Now, a part of that is correct shadow work. Let me say it outright, okay? Much of that is, but what has accumulated for many of these people is that they have collected shadow works and accumulating step ups. So much so that literally none of the world around them could ignore that under literally no circumstances. Like that person could be homeless in the street, having a conversation with folks, and then people are like, okay, this person is, there's something different about this person. Now, for the people that grew up in those environments, there wasn't anything different. That was the normal. Now, when I think about it, maybe Asian people can identify. Ever heard an Asian person sing? Each and every one of them sounds like the biggest diva, and then they just go to do the dishes. It's like, now, for those of you that I'm talking about, a lot of you, sometimes until you didn't get those certain reactions from your surroundings, you never really perceived something, or it's not that you've taken for granted because you were too busy working on that thing than to realize that, hey, that's a place you've actually acquired some skill that to some people might be quite frightening. In that respect, and that can be on a professional level, that can be on a soul level, that can be on a shadow work level, that can be on a relational level. Okay, when I was going through what I now know was a collective ritual abuse type of Nazi cult that was affecting me and the people I was in contact with in 2007, I was going full blown almost dead, and I never thought I could be, how should I say, managing energy or sensitive to energy. Or when I was psychically attacked and running from a trafficking place because of that, like I wasn't, the last thing on my mind would be that my energy actually does something in the world. Okay, because you feel so helpless. And so, and even now there are things that probably I don't understand. It's just like I stab a potato, it stops the weird voodoo things. That's it. It's like, okay, that's the most I can understand from some things. But it's also that many of you, first of all, would either not think that anybody would be envy of you because, okay, particularly, some people are targeted individuals. Some people are, you know, all kinds of lifestyle, really, and some people are going through like mental struggles. And so nobody, like the people that I'm talking to, probably you wouldn't think that people would envy of you. Not only that, you probably wouldn't think that people are trying to attack your light. Now, some of the people I'm talking to have been dealing with down literally depression. Okay, so they wouldn't think that anybody would be trying to get at their light. Definitely not joy of living. Okay, and so um, and definitely not energy or livelihood, because for many of you, you might have not experienced yourself as carrying those energies at all because of those attacks. Now, from the wealth families that consolidate wealth to, Light just had a video addressing people even trying to attach spirits at childhood or at puberty to people. Um, and I'm like, okay, She's a genius about those spiritual details. Light on YouTube. Um, but what I'm getting at is that the particular crowd that I'm talking to is would never consider that anybody would want to attack their light. And that can be people that have battled with things that can range from suicide ideation to self-harm. Things that could go around wondering, about being scrutinized for their personality or wondering about the personality traits. People that would get a divided type of attention. Get kind of like, oh, you're so kind, you're so pure, you're too good. Oh, you're so selfish, you're all around yourself. Okay, those type of people. And so, um, or people that where they grew up in a place where it was not it it was custom not to think too much of oneself. And so in those particular cultures, the susceptibility to not even thinking that somebody would try to get at your light or get at your shine, radiance, and confidence is actually a big deal. Because if something goes wrong, a person usually think, okay, what did I do that this happened? And for some of the people that grew up in really unsavory societies, they could have actually done some things. Okay, so for those people, it's like kind of like, well, there is the shadow work, and then there is another thing, and even the people that have done some things is because there is something lying dormant that they may not even be consciously aware of. And I know with the big discussion about ritual abuse, Epstein list, Diddler, right now Diddler is being getting the verdict or something like that. Um, okay, so there are a lot of people, can range from celebrities to people that are families of, to people that are hidden decision makers and so on, that suddenly can draw things from their past, or to people that are kind of like at the margins of society, not knowing that that was a programming for them to be at those margins of society. Um, and this is where the news flash is coming in. How should I say that? What is being attacked when somebody is being attacked? An attack goes in two directions. One, they need to try to get the person to as slow frequency as they can to try to create a portal communication and whatnot. Two, what they're trying to get out of the person is the light. This is why those attacks continuously fail and continuously have bad consequences. And continuously, the people that are involved consciously in doing those things get entangled up in all of the things that they were aiming to bring upon the next person. Let's just say. And so the juxtaposition of the cultures of doing shadow work and the way that curses or those weird spiritual things work is such that the person would go and address, I'll tell you a story. When I was in between houses, I met a woman and she was addicted to heroin. That's the last detail about her that you would think would connect her to being addicted to heroin. She worked as a security for the red light district. She was having discipline of military combat unit. She was always organizing her clothes so fixed, like so neat the day before. Everything had to be clean. Don't laugh. Everything had to be clean. Okay? Being fully accountable, authentic, and literally telling me, like, if she had to, let's say, steal a phone, she would literally tell me that some of the phones are stolen. Um, and I worked with mint essential oil, and then she began to smell in her nostril. Every single thing about her was full blown taking accountability, setting boundaries, like really doing everything possible. And I, as the person that slept bed by bed next to her in a shelter, by the way, a shelter that was meant for like the common people, was not shelter for only people. I know in some countries they have shelters for people that have like drugs and stuff like that, but no, that was a mixed shelter. And it was actually a good thing because otherwise I would never meet this person. And for me, as the person, just the bystander, I was like, that person is not addicted to heroin because of bad choices that they made. Something's going on here. And not only that, they wouldn't let her come down to take water with sugar when she was trying to withdraw by herself and the body was sweating. And then that story kind of stuck with me because I was like, wait, there is something about. Later, I would learn that they would kidnap people and forcibly put them on heroin and torture them. Now, the person might not even remember that if they had an accident or they had something that necessitate drugs that subdue pain. Now, I don't know if that happened to her or what happened, but that was the person who fully doing the shadow work, so much so that I was like, the surrounding is gathering against this person's recovery from drug addiction. And I remember that even before that, when I was in Israel, I had actually a friend that she was trafficked, she was tortured in a kibbutz, and she was trafficked. And then she worked again. She was trafficked to be sex worker, and then she was also addicted to drugs, and then she came out of that and that, lived in a shelter, and then she managed to get her own life while also channeling and so on, while she met a girl that was homeless in her city. This was Haifa city in Israel, and that girl said to her, there are no shelters for me because I'm not addicted to drugs. And for those that are addicted to drugs, it's considered double ailment, and they also don't get solutions. Only in Finland there were some people that got housing first, independent of ability to work for unlimited time, and were believed, and those people began to come up out of their addictions. Now, why am I saying that? Because for many of this particular collective, people have been you have been doing the shadow work, and what's left to be exposed is MK Ultra, MK Ultra, the things that they call conspiracy theory. Now, some of you come from a research background. Some of you come from knowledge about the music industry background. Some of you come from, today I ran into a video about Tracy Chapman. And apparently, Tracy Chapman took advantage of her big breakthrough, reinvested, and did art only on her own terms. And basically, what she was saying no to had to do with certain rituals. Now, she doesn't tell everything, but that was like, me viewing that in my Neptune square, which was a lot about, hey, are they all in? Yes, they're all in it, even the one you like. Sometimes, especially the one you like. Okay. Um, and what's basically happening is that there's a withdrawal from all of those types of, okay, whether it's cultural, whether it's scientists, whether it's, I don't know. And then what's beginning to unfold is, hey, those people were the people that were saying no to that industry. So there's Tracy Chapman, Maya, and there's MIA Maya, and there's Maya, and then there's Tracy Chapman. And together with that, the appraisal of the conditions of the people within those type of industries or at the margins of society. Okay. And this is where people begin to understand that it was their potential, their skill, their soul, their light, their beauty that those that were attempting to harvest on were trying to harvest on. Now, this is very, very challenging to understand for people because it's usually not the type of people that would think of themselves that much to begin with. And those issues that arise would be tackled in a very naive way. And that naivete accumulated something that, how should I say that in many realms cannot be destroyed. And a lot of people try to get at that, but when they would try to digest that energy, and this is where I would hear people like Light saying, oh, people try to digest certain energies, but they're having side effects from trying to digest that energy. And at first I was like, that's so weird. But then, but then I was like, of course, people are trying to, you know, let's just put it that way. If I open a notebook of a physicist that worked on the Manhattan Project, okay, and there would be the calculations and the equations, very likely it would take me a lot of mathematical due diligence to understand that. Now, let's say I would steal that notebook, okay? I would need to spend hours upon hours interpreting that notebook. Now, now let's say I don't have that notebook, but I do cosmology, and then I think theoretically about something that I don't have the equations for, but I understand the concepts of, because I've been tending to that for quite a while. Now, somebody else was going to try to harvest that energy and digest it, and they're going to be bombarded with the reason behind why I'm doing cosmology. What if my mathematical challenge has to do with certain facets of language acquisition, because mathematics is a language, that have to do with some sort of rituals, that have to do with some sort of boundary violation, that can reach all the way to identity. Now a person is trying to steal that light, they don't see the shadow. They try to latch onto the shadow to try to get the venue to get that light. But when they get that light, they don't understand that this is what shadow did that light overcome. And now they're basically collapsing a 9/11 on them. Think about the tower gods, they're collapsing a 9/11 on them, and then they're like not knowing how to handle that energy. The most ethical equivalent is, I'm an astrologer, let's say I look at somebody's chart and their energies arise, okay? And there would be a journey of me regarding that energy. Now, this is ethical. This is me and my energy. Another energy arises, and there is an interaction, whether with a living person or a dead person, that unveils certain things about me, about them, and so on. Natural. But when a person tries to create that interaction, how do you say that? When a person is trying to create a certain interaction by trying to latch into somebody's whatever they have still shadow work to do or whatnot, and then to siphon the energy that they already have accumulated, it's important for my collective to know that what they're trying to siphon is the light, and what they're trying to latch onto is some sort of something traumatic, or to put a person to something traumatic. Now, here's the thing. Across time, what's going to happen? The person is going to do their shadow work. By telos, they're accumulating more light. And then let's say that expresses itself as an actual ailment, particularly of a Neptune type, Saturn Neptune, that is not easy to diagnose. And then it manifests as a physical thing. They would go to conventional medicine, but that wouldn't account. Or they would go to their medical insurance, and that wouldn't cover for that. So they will have to think, how do they work around to get the most that they can. Let's say they have to set an appointment with a dentist, but if they would need anesthesia, then they cannot be overly traumatic and they cannot be hungry. Now they have to take something away to make money for themselves to eat well. And they ended up taking away a trafficking apartment. They're no longer renting a place that was trafficking them. Okay? And so what would happen is that as a person begins to tend to what they must tend to, those people, they thought, oh, they're gonna need that teeth treatment. This is where we're gonna traffic them. This is where we're gonna do this. This is where we're gonna do that. And what is ending up happening, they tend to the teeth, but holistically. They tend to the teeth and they think, well, if those scams happen, they also happen around medicine. It means that right now there is no dentist that is reliable until we tend to abolishing ritual satanic abuse, because some of these dentists maybe had to rape children in front of camera to get certification. And so there is not the answer to what the person is seeking. All the while, many people begin to tend to those things that may have created like a physical ailment that they're tending to, or they're tending to a physical ailment, but the conventional medicine is not really doing anything. So they try to change their nutrition, to do, I don't know, acupuncture, to try to think, when did that ailment begin, what happened in their lives, and so on. And then the people that were conjuring up, we're going to latch on that, we're going to latch on that, we're going to latch on that, finally are being associated as the creators of the disease. Not only those things begin to accumulate as evidence, whether in something missing or in something present, but they also begin to paint a picture that with all that shadow work, the person is almost forced to admit that they are being targeted for something that they contributed, not for something that, or not because of something bad that they did, but because of something that they contributed. Particularly when they have been trying to see, okay, what has gone wrong? What did I do wrong? Why did it happen to me? Why is this happening? And so on. And they go all the way back and try to heal this and to heal that and to heal that. And then they begin to remember what people call the hidden light. That was what the folks were trying to harvest. For example, let's take the person that I saw that was addicted to heroin. The person beside her, see that person has military discipline. Now they know that they are clean and so on, and they're pedant, But the hidden light here would be, hey, that person is so fucking accountable, so fucking, you know, so authentic, so true to themselves. They have, they are the person who is always providing, and so on. And now they're beginning to set boundaries. Now, for me, I was the kind of person that was always like, I was the kind of person that needed to set boundaries, but I didn't even know where do I need to set them anymore. And like a lot of the collective, I was not aware that people were trying to siphon on my energy on purpose. You know, and think about it, because I've been in such perpetual trauma that the last thing I would need that people that I would think that people would try to steal from me would be energy. And for a lot of the collective, this is absolutely the case for many. Now this is the beginning of the untangling of those things. It's both understanding that there is something by design that tries to keep people in general in perpetual trauma so that their life energy can be siphoned. And it's happening just where people try to do the shadow work, take responsibility, take the steps for financial freedom. Understand that, hey, the working sector was to begin with designed for slavery, and that created the disabilities that a lot of people have. Now, here is going back to the message, the way the message began, which was, they try to lock me down only to end up locking me in to my lot of happiness. Now, the way that the energy would be siphoned is trying to get at the person's relationships, and trying to basically harvest on their light through some sort of a wound or shadow that's to do with their relationships. Hello. Now I want you to think about, where do people go to get their relationships in check? Now, as a relational astrologer, that's something that I was not even aware of. Because I look at the synastry and I see what would be the challenges and what can people do about those challenges. And for me, this is where it ended. It also at a certain point, if I would see, okay, people are actually having process with their relationships, and I'm like, I don't know, stuck or whatnot, then I would say, okay, I no longer do relational readings. This is where I would put a stop to something that would otherwise drain me. But other people work differently. They would try to access a person's significant relationship to siphon energy, to have her, because those people would know, or to have the interact, or to watch the interaction of people so that they can siphon energy. And again, they need a wound to latch on, but what they're trying to get through that wound is the light. You think about a pest or a virus, let's say. If there's some sort of permeability that would allow a virus in. But once a virus is in, or a fungal infection, okay, think overgrowth of yeast. Yeast grows naturally in the body. When the sexual boundaries are violated, whether in spirit or in matter, yeast can have overgrowth. And then a person wants to eat more dairy stuff, more bread, more, okay, more pasta, for example. Um, and then folk and those that have those cravings, you gotta watch out for your yeast growth. But it derives from something to do with the sugar level balance that sparks an overgrowth of yeast. And that has to do with sexual sovereignty, as much as people don't like hearing that. This is self love. Well, why would a person have issues with self love? And so from there, what happens is that they would try to get at those wounds. Now, let's say a viral infection, or anything more that grows on that yeast, is basically needing the layer of that yeast to grow on. This is why, let's say, toenail fungi is not an aesthetic problem. And the people that try to siphon on somebody's wound, they need that wound to latch on, and they need to keep that wound. So they basically try to prevent the person from recovery from mental and physical ailments. And for many, many people, it can go all the way to, because I'm holistic health practitioner, because I'm academic that researched the body-mind question in the medicines from a philosophy of science perspective, then I can talk about a lot of things that a lot of channelers have to tweak around, okay, because of the many disclaimers that they are obligated to that I'm not. Okay, other than this is not a medical advice for a person, but when we tackle that issue, it's not a medical advice because I'm not your doctor. Okay, each person has their own story and their own storyline. But on a collective energy reading, a lot of people beginning to tend to their basically medical state, physical and or mental, and they will notice downright what they would think is a relapse and is actually something more than that. And that begins to knock down systems that were built on being pest-like. Now, here's the thing. Normally, who is considered a pest of society? The person sitting in the street begging. Why don't they got a job? Or maybe we can help them to swipe the street. Or those are considered the people that people would think of as, at the margins of society. Maybe they need rehabilitation. Maybe they need to learn the skill of how to live a normal life. Maybe they just need to be educated. Now, I'm not saying that some people don't need to be educated. Let's say if a person ran away from a home and lived like Mowgli in the forest, okay? They would need some social skills. That's normal. But a lot of people are just targeted individuals. And what we wouldn't consider the pests of society, so to speak, is those that try to keep people in their medical and physical, medical situation, physical and or mental, struggle perpetually because this is a wound that allows them to latch into the light that this person holds. Now, again, I'm talking about when those things are practiced consciously. I'm not talking about two people that are addicted to pasta. One is trying to withdraw from pasta, and the other one is feeling abandoned. Okay, that's it. It is both about having to set the boundaries in those friendships sometimes as well, but it's also sometimes that's like not the situation, so to speak, and sometimes there are people that perpetually try to keep a person sick to drain their energy until the person is kind of dead and they try to sell them out. Or now they have to, let's say it's a person that is befriending or whatnot. Now what would happen is that person that tried to siphon on the energy, as the other person is beginning to recover, they try to keep them down. And the result is that they drain the person of the life energy. Now they have to live with what they create, with the monster that they created, basically. Now, what would happen is, I talked about the babushka analogy. Like, they try to keep that person down. Poof! It's because the for the collective that I'm channeling, you've been the folks that were that babushka because you set yourself to take accountability, do your shadow work, do your this something try to keep you down. You're like trying to see, okay, what is the other thing that I need to tend to? What is the other thing I need to tend to? Just that energy is kind of that you suddenly you pop up. Oh, I went to treat myself psychologically. What was missing? Oh, maybe the astrology. Oh, wait, if there's Neptune in someone's seventh house, that literally means they're gonna have codependence in their relationship for as long as that Neptune is in that seventh house. Let me see. What else does astrology have to offer? It offers a windows of opportunity. Some things Those that watch my Spirit of Matter channel, just when I moved from manifestation to astrology, it was, hey, some things take longer to manifest because they might be dealing with Saturn. And I was having Saturn maturation. Saturn takes time. It takes 28 years to surround the zodiac. So when we try to manifest things in our Saturn-related houses, they take more time. And I think even Ksenia Moore addressed that at the time. And so what would happen? All of those people that tried to use astrology to target me began to have cold feet. And they tried to gatekeep astrology. And they tried to come up with all kind of religious excuses. And they tried to this and they tried to that. And then the only way to talk to me would be, wait a second, let me see the chart. And then let's say I was dealing with psychic attacks, so it's let me see the chart. Oh, this is Saturn's hour, or this is, oh, the moon is crossing Rahu, or, and that would expose that whoever was doing those things was either astrologer or consulting with astrologers, which would later expose MK often. Now, for my collective, this is about the way that these things go for you, because you would be continuously growing, continuously learning, and those that try to keep you down with all of their stuff, basically they're basically doing something that's called a crime against humanity. And any practitioner that knowingly joins forces with them is a partner in that crime against humanity. Targeting individuals is a crime against humanity. Now, getting someone to do crime is a crime against humanity. Okay, torturing someone until they would do this or that is a crime against humanity. Look at this lovely Saturn as I speak about karma implications. Midheaven on Saturn. Ascendant 11 degrees, Jupiter 22 degrees. And so what happens is that for the collective, for some of you it's going to be through research, and for some of you it's going to be through inner shadow work. For some of you it's going to be into sensing energy. Each and every one in their superhuman skill. Okay? And then what happens? You develop more and more skill, more and more knowledge, and the evidence are just piling up, both in their presence and in what is missing. Why does that astrologer not have a certification for astrology? Why are they not like certified trained? Why don't say, I studied this and that at that astrologer or that astrologer? Why do they only say, okay, teacher and so, my colleague? Because they did not participate in MK often. And I'm going to be incredibly tender. And so those that were planning on, okay, how should I say that, doing all kind of death related stuff on people that are that death related stuff, not as self-defense, okay, because sometimes for the psychic attack that people are sending, that is more humane. Okay, so I'm not but if you're a targeted individual, there are some things that to do it, that to say, okay, wish death upon those who do that, is more humane. um Again, those are crimes against humanity. So, but I'm talking about people that try to ritually sacrifice other people and do those type of deeds. That is, you know, now, does it mean that every single certified person is da 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 da? I don't know, but it's not supposed to be. We're not supposed to be. We talk about Psyche and Eros, okay? Then basically, it was a romantic story, but on a professional level, we're not supposed to sift the wheat from the mug, or when it comes to, hey, did that person rape the child and would try to siphon on the energy of their clients or not? That's not the type of discernment that we need to grow as clients, okay? Did that person participated in something like that? That's not the type of discernment anybody should have to be put in any situation to grow. What's more like it is that we're going to look at the structure and say, hey, what is the structure of extortion cults? They are used in wealth consolidation rituals, and this is our point of interference. Because these are going profession by profession and zombifying it. A person tries to do aromatherapy, gets psychically attacked. Holistic health practitioners, psychically attacked. Certified people that in the academia get psychically attacked. Now, they can't talk to anybody because who's going to believe them? It's academic and so on. And well, they have all these hang-ups about that. Then you open YouTube and you see people explaining the energy siphoning thing. There was even a lady that is coming from academia, and she was studying indigenous beliefs and practices now in a world that tries to do a one world religion, and she was just energy siphoned by peers or something, and then she had to open a YouTube channel and teach people how to exorcise those who try to energy siphon. So that was an academic talking about witchcraft. So she had a little background of talking about witchcraft. But that is, and now every once in a while they would get someone to do the weird hand gestures, particularly if we're channeling and we don't know what that means yet. And now it's like, go and figure. And if they don't get the person to do that, they might get their children to, which is even more creepy. I contacted